Esther thought getting married was a happy ending, but soon, her dreams turned into a nightmare. Jealousy and betrayal entered her new home, and a wicked plan now threatens not only her happiness, but also her life and the lives of her unborn twins. Esther sat quietly in the big living room, holding a warm cup of tea. The air conditioner made the room cold. The chair was soft and comfortable. Her long gown was smooth and expensive. She looked down at her wedding ring and smiled gently. Musa had gone out early for a business meeting. Before he left, he placed a short note on the table. "I'll be back by 6 p.m. I love you, baby." Esther read it, then folded the paper and dropped it beside her tea. She had everything now: a beautiful house, fine clothes, servants, and respect. But deep inside her heart, she still felt like a stranger in her own life. Esther no longer enjoyed posting pictures on Instagram. Whenever she posted, strangers filled her comment section with insults. Some people wrote, "Fat lady that used charm on our favorite celebrity crush." Others said, "That poor woman from the gutters of Lagos." And some laughed, "Musa must be under a spell. Look at what he married." Even though Esther deleted the comments, the words stayed in her heart. They hurt deeply. That evening, around 7 p.m., Musa returned home smiling. "Baby, I'm home," he called out as he stepped in. Esther came out of the bedroom. "Welcome," she said softly. Musa hugged her. "How was your day?" "Fine," Esther replied with a soft smile. "And I missed your troubles the whole day." Musa laughed and kissed her on the forehead. Then, he brought out a white envelope and handed it to her. "It's time," he said with a smile. Esther opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a letter, an invitation. Musa's family wanted to meet her officially. His mother, his sisters, his uncles, everyone. That night, Esther sat quietly on the bed, holding the invitation. Musa sat beside her and noticed the worry on her face. "You don't look happy," he said gently. Esther looked up at him. "What if they don't like me?" Musa took her hand and smiled. "You're my wife. They don't need to like you. They only need to respect you. And even if they don't, I will still stand by you. Besides," he added, "they don't have any reason not to like you." Esther nodded slowly, but deep down, her heart was shaking. 2 days later, they flew to Abuja to meet Musa's family. Esther wore a simple green gown with low heels. Her makeup was light, and her hair was packed neatly. But the moment they stepped into the house, she felt it. Cold eyes, fake smiles, quiet whispers behind her back. Later that evening, they all sat around the dinner table. Mama Musa didn't smile. Not once. She kept staring at Esther like she didn't belong there. Then she looked directly at her and said, "Esther, do you know how to cook real food, or just that street jollof rice you used to sell?" The table went silent. Esther smiled politely and replied, "Yes, Ma, I can cook real food." Musa gently held her hand under the table, trying to comfort her. Later that same evening, as everyone was moving around the house, Musa's sister, Rose, walked up to Esther and leaned in close. She whispered with a small smirk on her face, "You think being fat and lucky makes you good enough to carry our name? Women from the streets of Lagos who sell food don't belong in families like ours." Esther felt like her chest was sinking, but she didn't say a word. She just walked away. That night, when she got to the guest room, she cried quietly into her pillow. Musa came in and saw her crying. He sat beside her and gently wiped her tears. "They don't know you, Esther. But I do. And I won't let anyone make you feel small." The next morning, Esther went downstairs to get a bottle of water from the kitchen. As she passed the hallway, she heard Mama Musa speaking with Rose in a low but sharp voice. "She doesn't belong in this family. She's a shame. Very fat, too ordinary, and came from a dirty food joint. My son deserves better." Esther froze. Her hands started shaking. She turned back quietly, went up the stairs, and began to pack her bag. Musa walked into the room and saw her folding her clothes. "What are you doing?" he asked, shocked. Esther turned to him, tears in her eyes. "I want to go home, Musa. I don't belong here." "Esther, they hate me. Your mom called me a shame. She said I'm a disappointment." Musa stood still for a moment. Then he turned and walked out of the room without a word. A few minutes later, Musa stood in the center of the living room. His family was all sitting there. His mother, his sisters, and uncles. His voice was calm, but strong. "If you cannot accept my wife, then you don't accept me either. I didn't marry her to impress any of you. I married her because she's everything I never knew I needed." His mother stood up in anger. "You'll send that disappointment you call a wife away and marry someone with a real surname, someone that fits this family." She continued, her voice rising. "You're bringing shame to this family, Musa. And as your mother, your only living parent, I will not allow it." Musa raised his voice. "I am never leaving my wife for anybody. Never." His mother snapped. "You'll do as you're told, and enough of the embarrassment." Esther stood quietly at the edge of the staircase. She had heard everything. Musa looked at her, and with a steady voice, he said, "Get your bags. Let's go home." The drive back to Lagos was quiet. Esther sat beside Musa. He kept his eyes on the road. Nobody said a word. But even in the silence, they both knew one thing. Musa had chosen her. Again. And that choice meant everything. It was a quiet Saturday morning, and it had already been 2 days since Esther and Musa returned to Lagos. Esther was sitting in the bathroom, holding something small in her hand. It was a pregnancy test strip. She had been feeling strange for days, tired, weak, emotional, and craving unusual things. Now, as she looked down at the strip, her hands began to shake. 2 red lines. Her heart jumped inside her chest. She stood up slowly, still staring at it. "I'm pregnant," she whispered to herself. She walked gently to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. She didn't know whether to smile or cry. This was supposed to be happy news. But her heart was full of fear. What if Musa's family hears about the baby and starts trouble again? What if I'm not ready to be a mother? So many questions filled her mind, and her chest began to feel heavy. Later that evening, Musa came back home from the gym. He entered the house, smiling and sweaty. "Babe, you won't believe what happened at the gym today. One guy fainted because..." He stopped talking the moment he saw Esther sitting quietly on the bed. "Baby," he asked gently, "what's wrong?" Esther didn't answer at first. She simply reached out her hand and gave him the test strip. Musa took it and looked at it carefully. His eyes widened. "Is this?" Esther nodded slowly. Musa dropped the strip and ran to hug her. He held her so tightly, she could barely breathe. "We're having a baby? Babe, I'm going to be a father." Esther didn't speak. She just hugged him tighter. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Then she whispered, "Are you happy?" Musa looked into her eyes and said, "I've never been this happy in my life." Then he kissed her deeply. Far away in Abuja, Musa's sister Rose was scrolling through Instagram on her phone when she saw a trending post. The headline said, "Billionaire Musa and wife expecting first child." Rose hissed loudly and stood up. She rushed into the kitchen, where their mother was cooking. "Mom, look at what I just saw online," she said, holding out the phone. Mama Musa wiped her hands and took the phone. She stared at the screen for a few seconds. Her face became stiff and angry. "So, she's even carrying a child now," she said coldly. Rose nodded quickly. "They say she's the one controlling him now. People are even calling her Queen Esther online." Mema Musa dropped the spoon in her hand and slowly wiped her hands on her wrapper. Her voice was low, but sharp. "We'll see about that," she said. That same night, back in Lagos, Esther was sleeping peacefully beside Musa when her phone beeped. She picked it up and saw a strange message from an unknown number. It said, "You think you've won? Be careful. Not everyone is happy for you." Esther sat up slowly. Her hands became cold. Her heart started beating fast. The room suddenly felt darker, quiet, scary. She turned to look at Musa, who was sleeping beside her peacefully. She didn't want to wake him, but her heart was beating very fast. She quietly got out of bed and went to the living room. She sat in the dark, holding her phone tightly. "Who could have sent that?" she whispered. "Was it someone from Abuja? Was it someone close to them? Or was it just a random hater online?" She didn't know. But one thing was clear. Someone wanted to disturb her peace. The next morning, Esther didn't tell Musa about the message. She didn't want to make him worried. So she smiled and acted like everything was okay. Musa made her a healthy smoothie and told her to rest more. Then he gave her a neck massage, and they laughed and joked as he continued. 3 days later, they both went to the hospital for a pregnancy scan. The nurse smiled as she rubbed cold gel on Esther's belly and turned on the screen. "There's your baby," the nurse said happily. Musa squeezed Esther's hand. Esther smiled with tears in her eyes. But then, the nurse paused. "Hold on," she said. Musa looked worried. "Is everything okay?" The nurse looked at them and smiled again. "You're not having one baby," she said. "You're having twins." Esther gasped. "What?" Musa laughed loudly. "Are you serious?" The nurse nodded. Esther covered her mouth in shock. She was carrying 2 babies. She whispered softly, "God, what did I do to deserve this?" Far away in Abuja, Mema Musa was sitting in her living room with her friend, Chief Mrs. Edward. "She's pregnant with twins," Rose said angrily. Chief Mrs. Edward sipped her drink. "So what are you going to do?" Mema Musa leaned back in her chair and said, "I already have a plan. That girl is using her pregnancy to tie my son down. But let's see how long she can keep him." Back in Lagos, on a hot afternoon, someone delivered flowers to Esther. It was a beautiful bouquet of red roses, but there was no name on it. Just a small card that read, "Don't get too comfortable. The storm hasn't started yet." Esther sat on the bed, reading the card again and again. She was 5 months pregnant with twins. All she wanted was peace, rest, and joy. But instead, she was living in fear. That night, Esther finally told Musa everything. The message, the flowers, and how she had been feeling. Musa stood still. His face changed. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" he asked. "I didn't want to bring back drama," Esther said, her voice shaking. "But I'm scared, Musa. I'm really scared." Musa knelt in front of her and placed his hands on her belly. "You? And these babies, you are my life now. I won't let anybody harm you." He stood up, picked up his phone, and called his best friend, Stanley. "Stanley, get my security team ready. They start tonight." Musa thought he was prepared for any threat. But the real enemy wasn't far away. It was already inside the house, watching Esther's every move. From the outside, the mansion looked calm and peaceful. Inside, Musa had installed cameras and hired 2 strong bodyguards to follow Esther everywhere, even to her hospital checkups. He believed the danger would come from outside. He was wrong. That morning, Esther was lying on the couch, resting. One of the housemaids, Ada, brought her a tray with tea and bread. Esther smiled and said, "Thank you, Ada." Ada smiled sweetly back. But as she walked away, her face changed. It became cold. Her smile disappeared. She walked to the backyard quietly and brought out her phone. She made a quick call and said, "I added the white powder to her tea, just like you said." but nothing has happened yet. A woman's voice replied from the other end. Keep trying. I want those babies out before they are born. No one will take my son from me. It was Mama Musa. Later that day, Esther suddenly held her stomach and cried out in pain. "Ah! My tummy!" she shouted. Musa rushed inside. "What is it, baby? What's wrong?" Esther held her belly tightly. "It's cramping. Something is not right." The guards quickly carried her to the car and rushed her to the hospital. After some tests and scans, the doctor came out and said, "The babies are okay, but her body is under a lot of stress. She needs to rest completely for the next few days." Musa nodded, but he looked very worried. That night, Esther was lying quietly on the bed. She turned to Musa and said, "Why now, Musa? Why are all these bad things happening just when we are finally happy?" Musa held her hand gently and said, "It's because we are carrying something very precious. And when light shines, darkness always tries to fight it." Esther looked into his eyes with tears. "Promise me you'll protect our babies." Musa nodded slowly. "With my life." That same night, in the kitchen, Ada walked in and saw the new chef arranging food. She frowned and asked, "What are you doing?" The chef replied, "Madam's food plan has changed. Doctor's orders. I'm the one in charge of everything she eats now." Ada's heart jumped. The plan with Mama Musa was falling apart. She ran into the toilet and called again. "There's a new chef now. I can't go near her food anymore." Mama Musa hissed over the phone, then moved to plan B. "I understand," Ada replied quietly. 2 days later, a letter arrived for Esther. She thought it was one of those sweet notes Musa usually left for her in the mornings. She opened it with a small smile. But inside, there was a photo. It was a picture of Musa, hugging another woman. Esther's heart jumped. Her eyes opened wide. She held the photo with both hands and stared at it. The hug looked close. Too close. Then she saw another piece of paper in the envelope. It said, "Musa still sees her. You're just the one carrying his children." Esther dropped everything on the floor. Her hands were shaking badly now. Tears filled her eyes. Her chest felt tight. "No, this can't be true," she whispered. But the photo looked real. The words in the letter were cruel, but they planted doubt in her heart. And slowly, her peace began to break. That night, Esther couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the photo of Musa hugging another girl. Her mind was full of questions. "Who is she?" she whispered. She didn't want to believe it. She didn't want to think badly of Musa again. But her heart felt heavy. She got out of bed, walked to the mirror, and gently touched her stomach. She looked at herself and whispered, "What if this whole thing is just a game?" A tear rolled down her cheek. And in that quiet moment, she felt completely alone. The next morning, Esther didn't say anything to Musa about the photo. She didn't ask questions. She didn't argue. She just watched him closely. She watched how he smiled. She watched how he picked his clothes. She watched how he answered his phone. Her heart was hurting deeply, but she said nothing. Later in the day, Esther decided to call Stanley, who was Musa's best friend. "Stanley, can I ask you something? But please, it has to stay between us." Stanley's voice was calm. "Of course. What's wrong?" Esther let out a deep sigh. "There's a photo. Musa and a woman hugging. Do you know who she is?" Stanley didn't speak right away. Then he said, "You saw that photo too?" Esther felt her chest tighten. "So it's real?" she asked, her voice shaking. Stanley quickly explained, "Yes, the photo is real. But what it means is not what you think." Esther asked again, "So, who is she?" "Her name is Vivian. She used to be Musa's girlfriend a long time ago. But now she's married. That photo was taken at her father's burial last year. Musa only went there to pay respect and left." Esther blinked as she tried to take it all in. So it was nothing serious. Nothing, Stanley said again. Someone is just trying to confuse you and break your heart. Esther felt a little better, but not completely. Then she asked, why didn't Musa tell me about her? Maybe because he thought it didn't matter anymore, Stanley replied gently. Esther thanked him and ended the call. But even though the truth wasn't bad, it still hurt that Musa had never told her about the woman in the photo. That night, Esther sat on the bed quietly, rubbing her belly. Musa came in smiling, holding a food tray. I made your favorite, pepper soup, he said warmly. Esther smiled a little. Thank you. Musa noticed that something was wrong. Her smile didn't look real. He asked softly, are we okay? Esther looked at him and asked, if there was something you thought didn't matter, would you still tell me? Musa looked confused. Esther, what's going on? He asked again. She didn't reply. She just turned her face toward the wall. Musa sat beside her, looking confused and worried. He didn't know what had happened, but something felt off. Meanwhile, in the boys' quarters, Ada stood by the small window, secretly watching them. She was the one who planted the photo. Now, she could see that it was already working. Esther and Musa were slowly pulling apart again. She smiled and picked up her phone. She sent a short message, it's working. She's pulling away. Far away in Abuja, Mema Musa received the message and smiled. She replied, good. Now, we move to the next plan. The next morning, Esther was still lying on the bed. Her eyes were open, but her mind was far away. She didn't say much. She just held her tummy and kept quiet. Musa was in the other room, getting ready to go to the gym. But his mind wasn't on the gym. He kept thinking about how Esther looked the night before. She didn't eat well. She didn't smile well. She just looked sad. Musa tied his shoelaces slowly and prayed everything was okay. In the kitchen, the new chef had finished making breakfast. She made hot tea and soft bread with butter. She gave the tray to Ada, one of the housemaids, and said, please take this to madam. Ada smiled and collected the tray. But as she turned to leave, her face changed. Her smile disappeared. Her eyes became cold and sharp. While walking through the hallway, Ada brought out a small white sachet from her pocket. She opened it and poured the powder inside Esther's tea. Then she stirred it well and added sugar, just the way Esther liked it. She smiled again and walked into the bedroom. Esther was now sitting up, leaning on her pillow. She looked tired, but calm. Ada knocked and walked in with her fake smile. Good morning, Ma. Your food. Thank you, Ada, Esther said gently. Ada gave her the tray. Just as Esther was about to take a sip of the tea, the new chef rushed into the room. Ma, please don't drink that tea, the chef shouted. Esther was surprised. Why? The chef pointed at Ada. I saw her putting something strange inside your tea when she was in the hallway. I saw everything from the kitchen. Esther looked at Ada. Is that true? Ada didn't talk. She just stood there, blinking. The chef said again, please, let her drink from the tea. If it's safe, let her show us. Esther picked up the cup slowly and stretched it to Ada. Drink it, she said. Ada quickly stepped back. I'm sorry, Ma. I can't. I'm allergic to tea. Esther frowned. But you've been serving me tea for months. You never said anything about allergy. Ada opened her mouth but still said nothing. The room became very quiet. Just then, Musa walked into the room. He had heard their voices while getting ready and came in. What's going on? He asked. The chef explained everything she saw. Musa turned to Ada. You put something inside her tea? Why? Ada started shaking. She didn't have anything to say. Musa became very angry. His eyes were red. Guards, he shouted. 2 guards ran into the room. Call the police. Now. Ada started crying. Please, sir. I didn't mean to. Take her out. Musa shouted. The guards carried her out of the room. Musa rushed to Esther and hugged her tightly. I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you. Very soon, the police came and took Ada to the station. At the police station, they searched her and found the small white powder in her pocket. When they asked questions, Ada started crying. She told them the truth. She said the powder was meant to make Madame Esther lose her pregnancy, and that someone paid her to do it. Who paid you? The officer asked. Ada cried louder. Mama Musa. When Musa heard this, it felt like someone hit his chest. His hands started shaking. His own mother, the woman who raised him. The police in Lagos quickly called the police team in Abuja. At that time in Abuja, Mama Musa was sitting with her friend, Mrs. Edward. They were talking when Mrs. Edward saw a news report on her phone. It said, housemaid arrested for trying to harm billionaire's pregnant wife. She showed it to Mama Musa. As soon as Mama Musa saw the news, she stood up and shouted, Driver, take me to the airport now. She tried to run away, but the police had already told all the airports and checkpoints to be ready. Before she could board the plane, they caught her. They arrested her right there at the airport with her bag. She didn't cry. She didn't even say sorry. They put her inside the police car, and she just sat quietly. Back in Lagos, Musa was sitting alone when his phone rang. He heard the news. Mama Musa had been arrested. He dropped his phone and covered his face. For the first time in a long time, he cried. Not because of fear, but because his heart was broken. Esther came into the room and saw him. She didn't say anything. She just went close, knelt beside him, and hugged him tight. They held each other for a long time without saying a word. 3 months later, the hospital was full of joy. Esther had just given birth to a boy and a girl. Musa stood beside her, smiling like the sun. He carried the babies gently and kissed Esther's forehead. Rose, Musa's sister, was also in the room. She smiled and said, You both went through so much, but God showed up. Esther looked at her babies and whispered, It was all worth it. And in that hospital room, for the first time in a long time, there was peace, there was love, and there was hope for a brighter tomorrow. Did you enjoy this story? Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel, so you don't miss the next powerful story. Your support means so much. Thank you for watching.